Sports Minutes with Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Raushan. It's race week here in the Lion City with the Singapore Grand Prix set to light up the night sky. And when you think of Formula One, a few things are iconic. The Singapore skyline, the thrills and spills of fast cars, and this line in particular.
It's lights out and away we go.
What an honor to have the man who owns that line join me on Sports Minutes today. David Croft, a huge welcome.
How are you? Good to see you.
I'm very good. Good to have you back in Singapore. You must be excited.
It's great to be back in Singapore. I love coming here, to be honest. It's the start of, there's always a buzz around Singapore because it's the start of the run-in, isn't it? Things get serious from here on in. I was talking to Lando Norris yesterday, and we were saying that the races come thick and fast now, and every point is crucial between now and the checker flag in Abu Dhabi. And I think we're shaping up still for a really, really good title race between two drivers and maybe three. You never know.
We'll talk about that third driver in the equation in a short while, but just coming back to Singapore, I understand you've been to all 15, heading into the 16th one. You must have some fond memories.
It's ridiculous. It seems like we're here for like the second or third time. 15 Singapore Grand Prix. And yeah, I remember how excited we were when we first came to Singapore. I came out actually after, I think it was after the Australian race that year, just to have a little look around and to see what's what. And it became very clear that Singapore wanted to embrace the Grand Prix and not just host it. And we're really proud to have the first night race. And yeah, there are other night races that are just as good. But there's something, when the lights take effect and the colours of the cars really stand out and shine, and the drivers have their tribute crash helmets as well, it's just something a little bit special. And I don't know, the thing about this race for me, that it's never over till it's over. Something can always happen because it's a street race, because it's mentally the most draining race of the season as well, physically the most oppressive race of the season. And in terms of favourite memories, well, 2008, we remember a lot about that race for all the wrong reasons, to be fair. Lewis Hamilton's pole lap, that championship-winning lap that he dragged out a few years later, the crash at the start when we had the rain, and Max and the two Ferraris and Fernando Alonso all ended their chances by the first turn. Lando last year winning from pole. It's his first race that he actually won from pole position as well, and how he dominated that race, and I think really came of age as a driver. So many great memories.
You've already whet my appetite for the weekend that lies ahead, I'll tell you that. You talk about Singapore being the inaugural night race all those years ago, right? And you say there's other night races in the calendar now. 15 years on, when things are fresh, things are exciting. But 15 years on, do you think Singapore still holds that same allure and appeal?
Yeah, no, I do, because it's still tough, it's still a challenge. Yes, we've lost four corners, and I think that's actually helped, and I think it's made the racing better, to be honest, and certainly given us more chances for overtaking. But it's still, it is still that great challenge for the drivers. I don't think it loses its charm, and what we've got now is history and heritage. You know, and it's a race that it's a regular fixture on the calendar that everyone looks forward to. And it shows no signs of getting dull, trust me.
Absolutely. I promise we'll talk about racing. One final question. You a big fan of Elton John because he's the headline act on Sunday?
Yeah, no, I am a big fan of Elton John, actually. I went to see him a few years ago. My youngest son, is a massive Elton John fan. And we met up with Nigel Olsson, who's Elton John's drummer, beforehand, and just one of the most charming men you could ever wish to meet. Massive F1 fan. Loves his F1, and Nigel and I have kept in touch, so I'm really looking forward to trying to catch up with him and maybe see him in the paddock. He was going to come to a race in Las Vegas, but sadly couldn't make it. I won't get to see Elton, sadly. The concert stage is too far away from our commentary box, so there'll be no Elton John fun for me, but I might put some tracks on the playlist before we head to the race.
We'll ask the organisers if they can get you a helicopter to bring you from your commentary box to the Padang for the helps.
That would be the shortest helicopter ride ever, but it might be the only way I can get to the Padang stage and go and see him. Have you ever seen Elton John?
Never.
So he is great in concert, he really is. And when we went to see him, my son and I, we got talking to the stage manager. We were backstage, and he said, right, where are you sat? I said, well, we're actually sat right at the back of the stalls. We're at the O2 Arena in London. He said, well, look, when Elton plays Love Lies Bleeding, that's when we kind of stopping people coming to the front. So if you make your way down to the front, I'll be stood here, I'll let you come and stand right by the front. So I was about as far away from Elton John as we're sat now. And we just had the best time, James and I. We were dancing away, and I was like taking a load of videos. And I could see Nigel behind his drum kit smiling away and kind of waved at me between tracks. And he beckoned to the camera woman, look, that's Crofty down there. Make sure you get him on film, for the screens in the arena. And so they put me up on the screen. I didn't know I was up on the screen at all. I just get lost in the music. And it was only when I got home and I looked at my Twitter feed, as it was at that time, and
you were viral.
There were a few people going, Crofty, was that you at Elton John? we picked you up on the big screens, and they'd take all these videos of me dancing on the screens with my son. So yeah, the secret was out. I do like a bit of Elton.
Absolutely, and Elton John, clearly British royalty, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about another British royalty, Lewis Hamilton.
Good segue.
I try.
You've done well.
It's been a difficult week for Lewis on that front, losing Roscoe. What do you think his state of mind is going to be coming into this one?
Look, my heart goes out to Lewis. I know how close he and Roscoe were, and Coco as well. Pets are family. We all know that, and to lose any part of your family is absolutely tragic, and Lewis had to make that difficult decision to have Roscoe put to sleep, and look, that's going to be so tough on him, and I think what will be of comfort for Lewis is that he'll know that he's got the love and the sympathy and the empathy of every single person in Formula One, whether we support Ferrari and Lewis or not. And that will be of great comfort. When the visor goes down, he will be fully focused. I have no doubt about that. But in those quiet moments, when he'll reflect on times that Roscoe has come to the paddock with him, I'm sure he'll be in a melancholy mood to that respect. And I just hope that he's got his team of people around him, and they can share and think about the good times and the smiles and the laughter that Roscoe brought them and everyone else in the paddock as well, because he was a firm fixture in the paddock and a really lovable dog. I think Lewis will be fine. I really do, but my heart goes out to him. It can't have been easy the last few days.
No, absolutely, and I'm sure the listeners agree. They're sending strength and sympathy to Lewis in this difficult time. Lewis moving to Ferrari caught the imagination the world over, right?
It did, didn't it?
It was supposed to galvanise the driver.
I still think he looks great in red. I really do.
He'll look great in anything, that's the truth though. But it hasn't really worked out. Why do you think that's the case?
To some extent, no, it hasn't. Don't forget, he did win in China. He did win the sprint race, and he won it convincingly from pole position, and he was electric. But I think the trouble is the car's just not been there. And not just for Lewis, but for Charles as well. And Ferrari's problems have been well documented, and they have tried several fixes for their issues, and the fixes haven't worked. So when it comes to a Grand Prix, at certain tracks, they just can't run it at the height, the ride height they want to make the aero package work, and therefore their performance suffers. Lewis is losing out in qualifying to Charles as well. That's no disgrace. Charles is a great qualifier. Anthony Davidson, my colleague and friend at Sky Sports F1, talks about how you just lose that little edge in qualifying when you get a little bit older, and I'm sure Michael Schumacher felt that a little bit in his latter years as well. Fernando Alonso kind of bucks the trend a bit because he's 44 going on 34. And I think his body is actually still a 34-year-old body. He actually had some tests done on that one. But Lewis, from his qualifying position and the fact that the car isn't quite there, it hasn't really helped in terms of his ability to go and win podiums. He's had some storming drives where he's made up a lot of places, and we still see that old Lewis Hamilton in flashes. Spa, I think, was one of those races where he was slicing through the field at certain stages. But the longer it goes on, I'm sure the more the fact that he hasn't got a podium will weigh on his mind, because he desperately wants to do that for Ferrari, who've placed their faith and trust in him. And I hope next year, new regulations, we wipe the slate clean, we start over again, and I hope next year will be a more competitive year for Lewis, because no one wants to see him, not competing for podiums, because of the amount of joy I think he's brought the Formula One world with his performances in his years in the sport.
You talk about next year perhaps levelling the playing field. Could we see that this weekend, or is that too soon? Because Lewis is a 4-time winner here, and Charles loves the street circuit as well.
Well, we could, but can Ferrari run it low enough? This is a bumpy old track, and if they run it too low and the plank wears, then we might have another Hungary where they've got to back off in the last stints a little bit. I think you can, as a driver, make a difference here in Singapore. And certainly Lewis is that driver to make that difference. He's always qualified in the top 5 here. If he carries on that record, that'll be a fine weekend, I think. But it's so tight, it's so competitive. There are so many drivers jockeying for positions in that top 5. You know, it is going to take another championship-winning lap as he produced for that last pole he got here. So I'm not hugely confident, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see it.
But one man who will clearly be in the equation is Max Verstappen. That redemption arc since the summer break has been amazing. You talked about possibly him being a third contender in that Drivers' Championship title race. He hasn't won on this track, though.
No, he hasn't. So this is the big acid test for him. He's not been on pole here either, which is, you know...
Is that mind or is that machine?
Astonishing. I think it's machine, to be fair. Don't forget, 2023... Red Bull won every single race, apart from the Singapore Grand Prix. This is one of the reasons this race, you know, is still as exciting as it is 15 years on, because it is unpredictable and things happen. And you know, Carlos Sainz was delighted to pick up the pole and win a couple of years ago. But I was talking to Lando about this yesterday. About, you know, we were both watching the golf, the Ryder Cup at the weekend, which was a phenomenal sporting event. You know, my wife went to sleep on the sofa for an hour because we were a bit jet lagged because we'd just come back from our honeymoon. And when she went to sleep, things were okay. When she woke up, she found me shouting at the television. I'm like, this is not now going according to plan. It's not how I expected this to be, and it was a bit squeaky time, you know. But I brought it back to Formula One and said to Lando, you know, it's never over till it's over. You can't write anybody off in sport. And I think the Ryder Cup proved that. And he was like, no, you're absolutely right. So, you know, I'm not writing myself out of this title race, and I'm not writing Max out either, because look, he was 104 points behind. If he overturns that deficit, it'll be the most that there's ever been overturned. He was more than 4 races or 4 race wins behind. I think James Hunt in 76 was about 3.7 race wins behind Niki Lauda and overturned that. But, you know, for obvious reasons, James Hunt had an advantage. Niki wasn't on the track for a lot of those last races. Max was, more than 4 race wins, 104 points behind. He's now 69, I think it is, behind Oscar.
With 7 to go, I think.
With 7 and 3 sprint races.
Oh, yes, of course.
There is plenty of time for him to do that. And what seems to have happened at Red Bull is that they just found a way to unlock that car, certainly in the last 2 races, the potential, the performance. And maybe they're listening to Max a little bit more than they were at the start of the season. Certainly in Monza, that was the case. Max said, look, here's my strategy, here's my plan, here's my setup. If we do this and take even more downforce off to give us that top line speed and just put a bit more on at the front, I can live with it. You know, I can live with a pointy car, that's not a problem. Back end might go here, there and everywhere, but I can live with that. And they listened to him and he won, he dominated the race. And then in Baku as well. So let's see, if it's a 3rd weekend in a row where Max either wins or is right up there, then he has to be considered a title threat. Because on form, I think on current ability, he is the best driver on the grid. And I don't think that is a controversial thing to say there. And it's great that he's still in the mix. You've got McLaren, who will win the Constructors' Championship this weekend. They can't not do it this weekend, I'm certain of that. And Oscar and Lando allowed to race and allowed to race freely. And that will carry on until Abu Dhabi. And Max joining the equation as well. And, you know, that's why you're smiling. And that's why inside I'm really smiling as well, because it's a great prospect for Formula One fans.
Yeah, I'm planning my popcorn orders for the rest of the season already. You talk about McLaren.
Salty or sweet?
Mix.
Oh, no.
Why
would
you
do that? Why would you have salty or sweet? That's like a half and half
because
scarf.
variety is the spice of life.
Rubbish. No, make a choice. Salt or sweet. Don't go half. It's like, do you ever go to a football match and go, I really fancy a half and half scarf today?
Never.
Exactly.
Cardinal sin.
So it's the same rule with popcorn. It's like putting pineapple on a pizza. Some things just don't happen.
Salty or sweet?
Salt, always.
Okay. I know your order for the remaining races.
Exactly. I know I look like I have a sweet tooth, but when it comes to popcorn, I'm a salty man.
Better you say it than me. Let's talk McLaren. You talk about them definitely winning the Constructors' title.
No, definitely winning it. This weekend is going to happen, right?
And a big part of that is because they've been so peerless. They haven't made a mistake up until Piastri's DNF in Baku, right?
Yeah. And Lando's crash in Canada.
Of course.
And the engine problem in Zandvoort. But apart from that, what have the Romans ever done for us? Yeah.
How have they been as clinical as they have?
I think since Austria, the season before last, when the upgrades came in for Lando's car, they found a baseline car setup and design that was there to challenge everyone. And they have just continued at a pace. They brought in Rob Marshall from Red Bull, and I'm sure there's a lot of influence, Red Bull influence in that McLaren car. Having Rob Marshall as the Chief Technical Officer has helped unlock the creative genius that is Peter Prodromou on the aero side, and they work brilliantly together. And in Andrea Stella, they have a team principal that just says, right, go off and do it. I'm here to oversee everything, but I'm here also to empower you to go and do what you do best. And his way of guiding that team, I think, has been absolutely faultless. He sticks to the plan. To allow the drivers to race, to allow people to have their freedom, and to be in control at all times, whilst allowing others to have their head, as it were. And that is not an easy thing to do in business. I'm sure you'll speak to many business people who say, no, I can't let go, I can't delegate. Yeah. Delegation is the key, and good delegation is the key, and Andrea does that very well. He has the respect. I've walked around the McLaren factory with him, and it's clear he has the respect of every employee that works there. He works tirelessly, he works very hard for his team, and they can see that. He doesn't have to worry about the marketing and bringing the money in. Zach Brown is very good at that and has been for years, and their partnership works brilliantly too, because Zach is out there front and centre, and that allows Andrea to be the engineer that he wants to be. And they are the sum of all their parts, and the sum of all their parts adds up to a very fine winning machine. That obviously things are going to go wrong from time to time. That's live sport, it happens, but you've got to applaud the way that they've turned things around, and Zach needs to be applauded for this as well, because he inherited and came into a team that was losing a lot of money, that was on the verge of going out of business, and the Bahraini Wealth Fund that own the team put their faith and their money into it as well. But Zach had a clear plan and has carried through that clear plan. And it took a bit of persuading for Andrea to come in as team principal, but Zach is a very persuasive man, as I'm sure you'll know if you've ever met him. But that clear plan, he has carried it through, and there's no reason to think that they won't carry on being as competitive as they are for many years to come. And they're doing it as well as a customer to an engine supplier. And that's not something we've seen in Formula One a huge amount in the history of this sport. Braun obviously did it as a Mercedes customer in 2009. But normally you have to, and Ron Dennis said this, you have to be a works engine team to be able to win championships. Well, Zach has proved that wrong, and we'll see what happens in the future. Yeah,
we'll see where they build from here. Here I thought I was signing up for a Formula One conversation. You've given me great insight into leadership and everything that it entails in terms of bringing a team forward. Final question from me. You've said so much. You've mentioned Lando a couple of times as well. I have to ask, what's your podium prediction for the weekend?
I should mention Oscar as well, right? There's no British bias here whatsoever, and I think one of the delights of McLaren is that their lineup is so strong in terms of both drivers. Oscar has been phenomenal this year, the way that in his third year in the sport as a full-time driver, he's just kicked on and has learned so much and is showing that consistency. And Baku was a real disappointment for him, and it ended what I think was a 44 race finishing streak, which is no mean feat. That's the second longest in Formula One history, and 34 race point scoring streak as well. But in terms of a podium position, Oscar always bounces back when he has a setback. Lando has a way of bouncing back when he has a setback too. Max will be right in there in the fight, I truly believe. George Russell is having a super season, and I think is owed a good Singapore weekend. I honestly don't know, because I think it's really tight to call. I mean, obviously, I wasn't in Baku, and I obviously would have put Liam Lawson and Carlos Sainz down as my podium predictions for that one. Liam didn't quite make it, but Carlos did. I'm going to go a Lando win.
Okay.
I'm going to go a Max second and an Oscar third.
Oh, wow. You want this title race to stay alive, don't you?
That is because I want the title race to stay alive. I can't say it's going to be a great title fight and then say Oscar's going to win. But if Oscar does win, that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Because I do think, and I've said this right from the outset, not just this season but last season as well, he's a world champion in the making. And I think Lando has risen to the challenge of Oscar and is driving, to me, better than he has in his career before. So I just look, bring it on. I don't have to predict things. I'm just there to call what does happen.
And I tell you what, you've set the scene perfectly. Same time, same place next year, David?
That sounds like a great idea.
Thank you so much,
Bring the
Crofty.
popcorn, right?
Thank you so much. Salt, right?
Salt.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.